The wallpaper. How did I miss the hidden meaning in the wallpaper? Hi guys, it's Jess. I know, it's been like 84 years.
It's been 84 years.
But I am finally back with a follow-up to my first video on all of the art and symbolism in The Undoing. So watch that video first if you haven't seen it yet. And also, don't watch this video if you haven't finished the entire series of The Undoing yet, because spoilers! So we are going to talk through the last 2 episodes and then revisit some of my original theories to see how I did. Let us begin. Episode 5. It was right in front of me this entire time. In the intro, we see this wallpaper. When I first saw this, I was like, oh, how quaint, how fairy tale cottage. This reminds me of a William Morris. And that's because William Morris is really famous for these types of designs. Once you see one, you kind of get a feel for his style. So this wallpaper, whatever, I thought it was just there setting the stage for the viewer, letting us know that this opening sequence probably takes place in like a traditional household. Because to cover a wall with this kind of print is a pretty specific and bold design choice. Like this wallpaper probably isn't gonna exist in a stainless steel contemporary Hollywood Hills mansion now rented by TikTok stars. I feel like it fits more of like Taylor Swift's new Evermore vibes. Okay, sorry, I'm getting distracted. But yeah, I missed something huge in the wallpaper. I forgot that William Morris is very British. So where am I going with all of this? In that opening sequence, the entire time I was watching it, I kept wondering if we were seeing Grace or Jonathan as a child. My first impression was like, okay, it's a little girl, she has red curly hair, like it's probably Grace. But then like for a split second in that opening, you see a little boy, so then I was like, but is it Jonathan? Like, I don't know. So tying this all together, Jonathan is obviously British. And it makes sense that in a British household, you might choose a wallpaper or design by a famous British artist like William Morris. So now when I watch this opening sequence, it all kind of makes sense to me. I'm like, oh, of course, it's giving me English countryside vibes. This opening with the little girl and the little boy, it probably isn't about Grace. It's probably about Jonathan. In this episode, at around 41 minutes in, we learn that Jonathan didn't kill the family dog. He killed the family sister. Ugh, I found that so creepy the way he worded that. Ugh, sociopath. But we'll come back to the ending of episode 5 in a second. The next time I see art really appear in this episode is in Haley's conference room. Grace and Jonathan are there meeting with Haley to strategize, learn a little bit about the composition of the jury, and just like come up with their game plan. And there are 4 paintings in this room. First, we see 2 cityscapes that are like a bit abstract. I couldn't tell you who the artist is of both of these, but they do look pretty contemporary. What I found interesting about these artworks is more about the framing of the shot. So we see Grace kind of sitting closer to the lighter one, the daytime one, and then we see Jonathan sitting closer to the darker, more mysterious nighttime one. I see this as like a very intentional way of framing like good versus evil. Like we usually associate light, daytime with like safety and goodness and truth, while the nighttime and darkness is usually associated with evil or the unknown. Also, the darker nighttime painting kind of reminds me of Elena's lower level studio. So the way this is shot and where they're specifically sitting might be a complete coincidence, but that's how I interpret it, and I find it really cool. So when the camera flips around, we see 2 more paintings. They're much more abstract, and again, sorry, I couldn't tell you who the artists are. So I thought at first maybe the one on the right was something by the artist Kirshner because of the super jagged lines and like expressive colors, and like it might have made sense because he liked to paint like cityscapes, but also kind of like portray the anxieties about like modern society and like our detachments from each other. So anyway, I could see it fitting the vibe of the show, but like I don't think that's the case. I think that's me like reaching a bit. And then we have this other painting, and oh my god, it is so perfectly placed. I really hope it's not random. If you remember a few episodes back, Haley said that really iconic line where she is hired to create muck for people. And like I look at this and it's just like a gray abstract ball of muck. And I kind of see like an eye in there, like maybe the all-seeing eye of like truth or whatever. I just thought that it was a really interesting way of framing Haley and the ball of muck. Am I crazy? Let me know. Actually, no, don't let me know. And we're back at Franklin's fancy apartment. He is sitting there reading, and we see this portrait of this woman. I think she has red hair, and maybe we are looking at his late wife or Grace's mother. So anyway, the episode ends with Grace finally speaking to Jonathan's mom in England. Or should I say Jonathan's mum? So Grace is trying to get more information on Jonathan because at this point she's like, who the fuck am I married to? Like earlier that day, she literally found out that he used to have a sister who died on his watch. Oh, side note, at the restaurant where Jonathan told her like this big bombshell news, I want to point out this painting or drawing in the background that kind of reminds me of like a Matisse. I don't think there's any like hidden meaning in it other than like the restaurant's probably like really cool or trendy. And you should probably check out this video I did on Matisse because he is having a moment. Like this has been his year, especially in the world of influencers and online shopping and all of that. So yeah. Anyway, this is probably a bit of a stretch, but when Grace is talking to Jonathan's mom on this like video call, we could see some floral paper again in the background behind her. My possessed espresso machine yet again. But yeah, his mom is clearly a floral wallpaper fan, very on brand for her. So for me, it just kind of like reconfirms my theory that this wallpaper, this William Morris vibe, should have given us a clue that this opening sequence was taking place in England, and that the two little children were actually 14-year-old Jonathan and 4-year-old Katie. And the blood and the bursting bubble imagery all allude to the fact that Katie was hit by a car. We're on episode 6. Shit is undone in this episode. Henry finds the murder weapon, Jonathan starts melting down, then he starts blaming it on Henry, sociopath vibes, there's an intense trial going on, Grace schemes to reveal Jonathan's true character, and then she takes the stand and basically ruins him. Sounds like we've hit the season finale. And more importantly, we finally see that fateful night in Elena's studio unfold. And indeed, the murderer, Jonathan. The obvious suspect was the suspect. And that is the end. So how did I do with my original theories? I think all of the Hercules imagery that we saw at the Frick collection still holds true. You know, to me, Jonathan is the ultimate Hercules figure. He was like the hero of the hospital, literally saving lives. And then he was so charming and likable and was adored by his son Henry. Like from the outside, he seemed so perfect, like he was larger than life. But he was also a narcissist and sociopath. So that sculpture in the Frick collection about Hercules and Hydra, I think that still does represent how Jonathan, Hercules, was trying to like kill off and hide all of these problems caused by Elena, who is really Hydra, and that it eventually caught up with him anyway. And then that other sculpture I talked about, Nessus the Centaur and Deianira. Deianira is Hercules' wife. I said that Deianira literally translates to man destroyer or destroyer of her husband. Very unfortunate. In the end, Grace, who I saw as Deianira, Hercules' wife, eventually led to Jonathan's downfall. And that painting of Vincenzo Anastaghi, which I still can't say correctly, who was an expert on fortifications. Grace ended up protecting herself, and then Jonathan choosing vice over virtue, like this painting of Hercules. And the kiss painting from episode 1. It did foreshadow Grace being overwhelmed with love and passion from Jonathan, so much that she almost lost herself. And then of course, that one large ass painting Franklin keeps sitting in front of at the Frick collection. Harbor of Dieppe, Changement du Domicile by JMW Turner. Yes, still can't pronounce that right either, sorry. I talked about the overwhelming use of light and yellow and golds and how the light might represent goodness and truth. Or it was Grace being blinded by the light. I'll never get old. But Grace blinded by the light of Jonathan, like his charisma, until she could really focus in on what was true. You know, I really did think that Jonathan did it with Franklin's help. I was really tricked by Franklin's overall moodiness and darkness. But nope. It was all Jonathan. The undoing of his own perfect life led to the undoing of so many others. So what did you guys think about the ending? I feel like I wanted like one more episode just to like wrap everything up, or I wanted to be surprised by someone else's involvement in this murder. But overall, I thought the show was so well done, and I low-key really want to find out who was in charge of like the scenic design or set design so I could ask them about all of these different like little art theories I have going on. I'm also dying because in the last video I made a joke about how the violin teacher did it, but in the end it turns out that the murder weapon was in the violin case all this time, so like I basically solved the murder mystery, right? Okay, but for real, when I put out my first video on this, I didn't think anyone else noticed or cared about the art in the show. So it has literally been the best thing ever to read all of your guys' comments and just to see that you guys were also curious about the art as well. Ugh, it just warmed my little heart. So that's that on The Undoing. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll talk to you guys very soon because I'll be back with some new videos, so stay tuned. And yeah, I'm gonna go because my butt's asleep again because I keep sitting on the ground for no reason. Bye.